It's good to be here today. I had a great speech for today. I've been thinking about this occasion for a long time until the RFP came out. And, you know, everybody, I think, knows Section 11.1. You know, that's essentially the gag order. We're not allowed to speak about these things. I was really intrigued yesterday about how that was honored by all the participants here. So, but I am going to honor it. I've thrown away my speech. I'm going to talk about the most important thing going on in the country here. It's Barry Hall and the West Coast Eagles, and I've been a footy. I became a fan of footy right after I came here, so I know a lot about this, not as much as you all do, but I want to spend my 20 minutes here just to give you my sense on this. And I also noted in the paper this morning he only got 7 weeks suspension. I thought he'd get at least 12. And I also noted that he ran his hand through the wall, which was more solid than the West Coast opponent that he slapped in the face. And so he broke his wrist, and his wrist is going to keep him out of commission for 6 weeks. So really, his suspension is only for 1 week. And then I got to thinking, wait a minute, Graeme Samuel used to be a commissioner for the AFL. And I thought, you know, well, there are a lot of legacy effects around, and one of the legacy effects of Graeme Samuel is giving somebody a free ride. So he gets 1 week for knocking a guy in the jaw, and I thought the best hit was the one when the guy ran up to him and he just touched him like that, and the guy, you know, flew out from under. So what I want to do today, though, is really talk about Australia's digital future and get serious about it, because it is a serious matter. I'm not going to talk about the bid. I'm going to try to honor that, although our ability to do that is getting shorter and shorter every day. Also, I think that it's really important to emphasize an area where I agree with Senator Conroy when he said the issues, not the gag order, the issues really are prices. And I would add another one, regulatory reform. I mean, those are going to be the key issues going forward as far as the FTTN is concerned, and as far as anything in this country is concerned, where prices are regulated, you know, by a regulator, not regulated by a market. So that's going to be a critical issue, and it's important because prices determine whether you can get a return on investment, and whether you can get a return on investment depends on whether people invest or whether your shareholders will let you spend money for things. So let's don't kid ourselves that, you know, when people go out and say they want to have the lowest possible prices, and the next day say they want to have more investment, let's understand that you can't have both. You know, if you have the lowest possible prices, you know, if you have a price that equals cost, you're not going to have a lot of investment. If you have a price where people can earn a return on investment, you're going to have a lot of investment. People yesterday, I saw in the paper this morning, talked a lot about the need for competition and the need for innovation. How do you get competition? You get competition by investing. You don't get competition by getting a subsidy from the government. Opal learned that. You don't get competition by getting a free kick from the regulator. That's what Graeme Samuel's been doing for 3.5 years, and look where investment is in this country. We have a negative investment growth in telecommunications in this country for the last 3 years if you take Telstra out of the mix. So, you know, if we're going to get serious about this, let's talk about what's real, and what's real is investment. And the fact is people aren't investing. And the reason they're not investing is because the regulator has made it uneconomic to invest. The regulator essentially has said to people it is rational not to invest. It is more rational to ride on the Telstra network at below-cost prices than it is to use your own HFC network, let's say in the case of Optus. And if that's what the regulator wants to do, the regulator has the power to do it. In fact, the courts just said the regulator has unfettered power to set prices. So if the regulator sets prices on that basis, then don't be surprised that there's not investment. I mean, if you put a baby and a tiger in the cage with a tiger and the tiger eats the baby, should anybody be surprised? No, that's what happens. That's what tigers do. And it seems to me that that's exactly what Graeme Samuel has done. He has created an environment here where nobody has an incentive to invest. Nobody has an incentive to hire engineers. They have an incentive to hire PR people so they can go out and get government subsidies and government help and government this and government that. And nobody wants to put dollars on the table, billions in the billions, counted in the billions, not the millions, in the billions, to make things, to build things, dig trenches, those kinds of things. That's what has to be done. So I agree that pricing is a critical issue. Now, what I'd like to do is quickly go through what we've done on our side to deal with the gigabit future, to move toward a gigabit future. And, you know, to do that, we have to have some interim arrangements. Why? Because we've delayed now for 34 months that I've been here making a decision on a national broadband plan. We laid out a plan for broadband in this country in September of 2005, and it was rejected by the government. We did it again with the ACCC. It was rejected by the ACCC. We did it again with the government. It was the approach was rejected by them. That's okay. While we were doing that with 5% of our time, with the other 95% of our time, we were building a nationwide NextG network. We were building a IP network in all the major cities in the Gold Coast. We were doing other things with 95% of our time while we tried to get the government to give us a go-ahead to build a national broadband network. It didn't happen, so you know we're trying again. This is the kind of wake-up call that people need. Lots of things can happen if regulators will get out of the way, and if regulators will have an objective. And the objective ought to be to, well, let me tell you, I don't know any place in the world where people don't have a clear sense of what a regulator ought to do. Before I came here, I was president of the National Academy of Public Administration in the United States. It was set up by Congress to advise Congress, the White House, and every level of government about issues of governance. I spent about a third of my time on regulatory issues, on the side of the regulator, trying to make the regulator more effective, more efficient, and more forward-looking. And I can tell you that in all the work we did with other international regulatory bodies and regulatory bodies in other countries, there are three things that a regulator should do. There are three ways to evaluate a regulator. Number one, do they provide more choices for consumers, and do they protect consumer health and safety? Number two, does the regulator advance investment in the industry? In part to create innovation, in part to give more choices to consumers to help do number one. And number three, does it foster a healthy and competitive industry? Now, if you look at the ACCC and Graeme Samuel's leadership of it, it fails on all three. They have this slide by itself shows how they have not protected the consumer. They have not provided for more choices for consumers. They have denied choices to consumers. I thought it was interesting today that Senator Conroy said that you know when we lowered our prices on broadband, they took off. Well, guess what? The first time we lowered our prices on broadband, we got a competition notice. A competition notice. So, you know, let's be clear about what the role of the regulator in this country is. The role of the regulator in this country has been very clear: to deny choices to consumers, to deny an environment where investments are made on their behalf and on behalf of the national interest, and to create an environment for the industry that's a very sick environment. There's hardly a company in this country that's in a healthy condition if you just look at the balance sheet by itself. And so those are not marks of wise regulation. And that's not Phil Burgess talking. That's the view of any student of the regulatory process you would go to in any developed country around the world. That's the way professionals look at what a regulator should do.